Good evening, infidels. We are here for the very first episode of the Bible Lens podcast. So this is going to be something completely different from what you guys are used to. I know some of you guys have watched the Bar Room. We've done movie nights. We've done the Monday night movie club as well. But we're going to take a little slightly different turn here. And I got a completely new cast of people here joining me here tonight, people you haven't seen previously before. So I'll go ahead and introduce you guys to some of our new cast here. We have our good friend Samantha joining us all the way here for tonight. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing amazing. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well tonight. You see right below Samantha, we got our good friend Johnny rocking the Under Armour here tonight. How you doing, John?
I'm doing all right.
And then right on the side of him, I don't know if you want Christian or Chris, or does it really matter to you?
It doesn't matter. I mean, I have Chris, obviously. That's a nickname, but you can call me Christian as well.
So as you can see here, we got a lovely group of people here, Dog Spirits, episode 1 of the Bible Women's podcast. So let me kind of explain to you exactly how we got to this point here tonight, and then we can get into basically our topic of the night here is that, so if you guys know, I started the site Society Reviews back in 2016, and initially it was just going to be a straight movie review site, nothing else. I'm just going to review movies and then let it be that. After a few months of getting into that, I started really looking deep into the movies that I was watching, and it's like, well, you know what? It's kind of hard to talk about these films without talking about the messaging in a lot of these films, because sometimes it's so blatant you can't just not notice it. So it's like, okay, well, I can't just be a straightforward movie critic like everybody else. I'm gonna have to get a little bit deeper into it. So I started talking about the political aspects of these movies, the spiritual aspects of these movies, a lot of the things that we saw, especially in the age of Donald Trump, when Hollywood just went completely lost their mind, very angry about this type of stuff you were seeing over there. So it grew to me doing stuff for Bounding in the Comics, Bounding in the Sports, Zinger News, growing the site, started with the YouTube channel, covering a lot more of these stories in depth. But as I was doing the Barroom podcast, especially over the course of the last few weeks, you notice that we've covered a number of topics here on the show over the last couple of months, and we're starting to see a trend in Hollywood that's a very, very dark trend. Now, I know that with the audience that we have with the Barroom podcast, talking about stuff on a more spiritual, religious level isn't really the right mix, because I know people are there for more entertainment stuff. They may not be Christians. I know we have people from all different lives. We have people who follow Islam, people who follow Catholicism, atheists, stuff like that. So I wanted to do a weekly show starting here in the next couple of weeks that focus more on a lot of the religious aspects of what we're seeing in Hollywood over the last few weeks. So obviously, in order to talk more in depth about some of these issues, I need to get some quote unquote religious people here with me, which is why I invited you guys here to be on the show. So how do you guys feel being you're my new chosen flock of people here?
It's an honor. Thank you.
I'm
I really
excited.
like it. Oh, go ahead, Johnny.
All I was going to say is I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that's one of the things we all have in common is at least, Jacob and I definitely love film. And then obviously we're Christian too. So I completely agree. It's kind of crazy how everything's going with Hollywood too.
Yep. So we're on right now YouTube, Rumble, and we're on Kick. So we're on all 3 platforms if you're checking us out here right now. We're closing in on 1,000 subs here on YouTube, 100 on Rumble, and then Kick. Kick is going to be a long climb to the top, so just bear with us over on Kick. But to introduce some of our people here joining us early on right now, we have the condescending Josh, our great editor, Josh Berger over at Bounding in the Comics, who should be editing my articles right now so they can get posted up on the site. So it'd be great if you get on that one. He's asking us what we're doing here. Then, of course, we got our good buddy Duke Nukem here saying, who the F are all these people? Yeah, Duke. Duke is one of our guys who's into Islam. So I'm pretty sure at some point of the show in the next few weeks, we're going to be conflicting here. But my hope with this show is that there's a lot of things going on in the world that we look to expose. And in the process of exposing these things, we're probably going to upset a lot of people. We're going to upset, people from different faiths and religion. But we're not doing this just to attack you and, smash you over the head with a hammer or anything like that. We're trying to open people's eyes to things that, from our perspective, are kind of, let's say, obvious, but to a lot of people who are kind of not in the know, they don't really exactly see the same things that we see. So, this is going to be your typical like Bible study type of podcast and everything like that. We're not doing any kind of like religious sermons or anything, but it's more just a commentary of kind of like the world and piecing some things together that people should have their eyes open to. And our first episode here tonight is talking about the popularity of witchcraft. So this is going to be an exciting one because I'm not going to talk about just the entertainment aspect of it as well. We're going to see how some of these things have also crept into the church that a lot of people haven't really talked about over the last few years as well. But let's go ahead and start off with how I guess this whole thing started. Now, the dive into a kind of witchcraft kind of started about a few months back. If you remember, I got into a little issue, let's just call it that way, with a former cohort of mine over an article that I did back in February about Vanessa Hudgens. So let me go ahead and actually pull this up here because I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. Here we go. So this is an article that I did a few months back, and it was titled Vanessa Hudgens is promoting satanic witchcraft in her upcoming Tubi reality show called Dead Hot. So this was the first time that I noticed, at least blatantly noticed, that hey, there seem to be some people really promoting witchcraft in Hollywood. I kind of feel that it's kind of odd how you're seeing this being popularized. So in the course of writing this article, someone who I used to associate with, I don't think we're on very friendly terms now, Mr. Stephen Walton, got very, very angry with me. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people got angry with me. Most people who identify with as pagans, which I thought was very, very funny, but because I made the correlation that, hey, witchcraft is satanic. And there's a lot of satanic imagery and a lot of symbolism into the occult. But people who want, let's say, religion to be respected as their religion didn't exactly take too kindly to that. So I upset quite a few people here. Now, before we get into the nitty gritty of this story, I wanted to go ahead and show you how this whole thing snowballed here. Vanessa Hudgens, like I said, this is back in April, so it was a little bit later than I expected. But Vanessa Hudgens did a reality show on Tubi, Dead Hot, that was about her passion project that she described as witchcraft. Now you can see a lot of the pictures here. Keep in mind, this is a point of contention with me and John Trent, who is the owner and the founder of Bounding in the Comics. I had more darker images that was in the trailer for this promotional here that he decided not to put on here because he didn't want to, I guess, expose our audience to more darker stuff. But I wanted to have some of those images in there so people couldn't say that, oh, well, you're just being a conspiracy theorist. It's not really what it is, stuff like that. Because whenever you point out stuff like this, the first thing they want to do is discredit you. But there was a lot worse images on here that got into the article. But to spell this one out, she did an interview with Variety a few months back, and she says that witchcraft was something that she's been doing for years and that she's truly passionate about. This is her quote here. It was a lot more personal than anything that I've done. I'm not hiding behind a character as I normally do. This is me exploring something that I'm very passionate about. Now, I've heard interviews about her in the past saying that she allegedly speaks with spirits, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. She also goes in to say that I knew it would be extremely personal and that it will be sticking my neck out doing so, but I'm hoping that it makes other people curious out there and inspired to open their hearts, minds, and soul to trust their intuition, and a bit more peace in the unknown. So she's saying simply straight up here that her purpose of this show was to introduce specifically to young women, and we'll see this being a thread here throughout the show, that she wanted to introduce young women to the idea of witchcraft and occultism, things of that nature. And this is the reason what inspired me to, do this article and really start this whole thing, because there's a lot of women out there who kind of look at this like, oh, I know Vanessa Hudgens. She used to be my favorite Disney Channel star back in the day. Oh, she's doing this thing called witchcraft. Well, let me look into it. And I've noticed that I know a lot of women who have played into things like, Wicca, which people say, oh, it's not witchcraft, it's Wicca. And then there's even people out there who, I don't know how you rationalize this in your mind, saying that, oh, yeah, I also do quote unquote Christian witchcraft and stuff of that nature. And I think to myself, You think that there's such thing as a Christian witchcraft? Have you ever read the Bible, like ever in your life? Because I don't know if you know this, there's many Bible verses that make it very, very clear that witchcraft is not something that is pleasing to the Lord. As a matter of fact, it is openly condemned over and over again. People were legitimately killed and was told to be killed for practicing witchcraft. Just in case you guys didn't know, I believe it was Leviticus 27 that says that a man and a woman who halts a familiar spirit or a wizard shall surely put to death, as they should have basically be stoned, and the blood should be upon them. So it makes it very, very clear. And we'll talk about other instances here as well. But I'm going to start off with kind of this aspect of it. And since we have a couple of females here, I wanted to talk to Sam and Chris about this issue. Do you guys, I know you guys have had experiences with these type of people before in your past. Have you noticed that there's been a trend to, I guess, popularize witchcraft specifically with young women like yourself? I'll start with Sam, and then we can go to Chris.
Yeah, so I'd say the earliest time that I noticed it, you remember America's Next Top Model, Tyra Banks?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember watching an episode when I was younger, and they had like this one episode where this girl was using crystals to like see who was a virgin. Very
Yeah.
weird stuff. But like if a girl was a virgin, it would go in a circle. If it wasn't, it would like dangle like a pendulum. And I remember being intrigued by that, but thinking that it was weird, but thinking maybe there's something to it.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I was kind of at a dry church. It wasn't very rooted in the Holy Spirit, I'd say. So you're taking in these messages, and then you start to become open to the idea that maybe there's something to this, and that seed being planted exposes you to it. So it's everywhere, and that was back in like maybe 2008,
2007, yeah.
whenever the height of the popularity of that show was. So yeah, I'll let Christian speak to it though.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I agree. I will say that even the older I've gotten, the more witchcraft has become, especially like with my old friend group. I would say it definitely was like I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but like your horoscope, your zodiac sign, tarot cards, that's all witchcraft. And I think that's like something that people really care about, especially with girls. They want to know like who their soulmate is, and we all care about like love. And I think that like when you compare, or if you're a Cancer or whatever it might be, a Scorpio, that's all witchcraft. And I think that like as girls, like, well, even just everybody in society, we are spiritual beings, and we do tend to gravitate anything that is spiritual, and we have to be careful with what we tap into. And I think that like that's what the problem comes down to lukewarm Christianity, is because we do crave something that is spiritual, and either it's going to be the Holy Spirit or it's not. So that's just my personal experience for sure. And I think that's kind of one of the things that pulled me into Christianity and finding relationship with Christ as I've gotten older. And it pulled me away from my old friend group as well, because I realized like the importance and the gravity of the situation when we really are messing with. Yeah.
Yeah. Johnny, let me ask you a question. What was the first time that you've noticed that, it doesn't be specifically with Hollywood, but when did you first start to notice that there was seemingly this push to popularize witchcraft and other forms of that in pop culture? Just real quick, I was talking to Mike Miller about this. I want to see if you guys agree with this as well. But he was saying that he believes that this really started with the Harry Potter series. And I know like 20 years ago, people were saying that Harry Potter was essentially popularizing witchcraft within like the youth community, and people kind of like blew their nose about it, saying that, oh, it's just Christians being like wild Christians, stuff like that. Well, now here we are 20 years later, the people who grew up with those books and those movies have also grown up as well, and now we see that witchcraft has become more popular now than it has been before. So did you kind of notice it there, or what did you start noticing people playing around with the occult?
Honestly, when I was in like high school a few years ago, my big obsession was classic rock. And if you know anything about classic rock, the Eagles, Jimi Hendrix, what have you, a lot of that is demonic. A lot of that centers around selling your soul to get fame, to get, riches, to get good songs. There's a lot of reports of like famous rock musicians, like, I don't know, waking up one night and just having the tune to their next song in their head. And that's kind of one thing that also stuck out in your article, right? About Vanessa Hudgens.
Yeah.
She was saying like she wants to encourage young people to open their soul to witchcraft. It really makes you think, okay, maybe these people are literally selling their souls to some sort of spiritual supernatural thing to, I don't know, get riches or get famous or what have you. And one thing that's taught in the Bible is, the supernatural, the spiritual, it either comes from God or it comes from demons and Satan, right?
Yeah.
And so if they're not attributing that stuff to Jesus, if they're not selling their soul to Jesus, then they're selling their soul to Satan, you know?
Yeah, so like I said, the thing that really inspired me to do this, and this is something that mentioned here in the article as well. Like I said, this is a show that's promoted to young women. So we're talking about women, like I said, could be teenagers, could be women in their 20s as well. So this is something that I found very interesting. This is exactly why I wanted to write this article, because it was the dangers of this that, of course, wasn't being talked about here because they're trying to popularize it here. But she's talking about Vanessa Hudgens here about a Zoom meeting that she did where they were performing these rituals online, right? And this is what she says. During 2020, I think that we were all looking for ways to better ourselves, to grow and come out of it better people. I really started to lean into rituals and manifestation, and I was actually leading a little coven of meetings over Zoom with a few other witchy friends. This is her talking. It was such an uplifting community, and it had me even more curious about witchcraft. The exploration seems to be a special thing for me to document. Now, right below that one, she also goes on to talk about how the reason why she started to, I guess, link with, I guess, higher members within the witchcraft community is because during one of these meetings that they had online, something went awry. That's all she said. She didn't say what exactly went awry, but she said that, well, something went wrong, and they figured that they needed the guidance of someone who was, I guess, a little more powerful with situations like this. And this is kind of my big thing here, is that you're trying to use this as a gateway for people to join witchcraft communities of the such, but you're not telling them the dangers of it, because if you're talking about, the dangers of witchcraft, as you said, if it's not coming from God, it's coming from Satan. So when you're getting into these kind of covenants, which we'll talk about here throughout the course of the night, you're opening yourself up to something that once it gets a hold of you, once you invite things in, it's extremely difficult to get rid of. And when you do let these things in, it could pretty much destroy your life and even kill you in a lot of instances as well. So, but in the, of course, the article is just like, oh, well, things kind of went awry. It's like, oh, okay, well, what happened? What could have possibly went awry here? And like I said, it starts getting a lot darker once you start putting these threads together. But let me ask you just this right here. I think one big thing that drives a lot of people into witchcraft, especially like non-Christians, let's be very honest, I think what people always deny is that there's a need for God in people's lives, even though they deny Him, even though they deny, any kind of like religious aspect or stuff like that. But they want to have that community that, being a Christian, being part of like a church, stuff like that, that brings. You want to be part of a group of people. You feel like you want to be a part of something, but they don't want to look for God, so they'll look for it elsewhere. That's why you get a lot of people who will join witch covens, because it feels like, oh yeah, this is the sense of community that I should be having under, the Lord Jesus Christ, but now I'm having it under, my witchy friends, as what they like to say here. And I think it's that sense of belonging, especially being so lost, that drives a lot of people to that. And what you'll see in the course of this is that the people who always get caught up in this are the people who are completely lost, the people who are had rough upbringings, never really had anyone to tell them right from wrong in life, so they get it from the influence of the world. And unfortunately, the influences of the world are not exactly in our favor. Do you feel like I'm on point with that one, Sam?
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like people always just look for community, and
Yeah.
people, when they don't have God, whether it's the right community or the wrong community, they just want to be a part of something. And I found myself caught up in that too. Luckily, I never got caught up in a coven. But I think that's why you see people who end up in gangs,
Yep.
witchcraft. I mean, there are just different facets of society that people end up aligning with. And a lot of what we're seeing, especially, I mean, now that media is making it popular, um, is people kind of aligning with this idea that if they become a part of witchcraft, that they're going to have a group to fall into. So I think you're exactly on point with that.
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, especially where we're headed. I think that is one of the biggest things is that, like I said earlier, it's so easy to find something that you want to be connected. We are all spiritual beings at the end of the day. So, I mean, if you're dealing with the spiritual realm, you're dealing with the spiritual realm. So it definitely like something you have to take into to mind is just knowing that like what you're dealing with, right? And I will say that like that's one of the biggest things that pulled me into Christianity and finding Jesus is because you know, I dealt with that. I dealt with witchcraft. I kind of did my own thing with that a little bit. I worked with a little bit of like crystals, but I will say that finding that connection is the biggest key right there. What you're saying, and finding community and finding feeling like you belong and that you matter, and that's where it comes down to. But it boils down to that is like at the end of the day, a lot of people don't feel like they matter. They don't know what they matter, and they don't know where they belong. And I think that like you have to find you know, Jesus at the end of the day, where you know who you are in Jesus in Christ. So that's what it comes down to, that for sure.
Oh, go ahead, John.
All I was gonna say is it's interesting that these people, they're lonely or whatever, they feel rejected, they have these negative feelings, and they go to a community of people that feel these things, these same things maybe, and here they are kind of gathering around the supernatural, right? They're gathering around like the extraordinary, in the realm of, the unseen, like where God and demons and Satan live. And here they are, uh, choosing, like actively, like going against the, I don't know, the good part of the supernatural, right? The healing and stuff like that. And I don't know, like, yeah, you find community, but I also think you find a little bit extra damnation. You have a
Well,
lot more evidence for God if you see those supernatural things, you're calling upon those things, and then you're actively choosing kind of the evil part of it.
you have to remember though, like we all crave those feelings. We all feel like at the end of the day, like we all feel like we're lonely. We all feel like
Yeah.
we are craving something more. So um like I said, I feel like I dealt with a little bit of witchcraft in 2019, 2018 as well, in the beginning of 2020. And then I didn't realize what I was doing. I think some of it comes down to is like educating yourself, because it's like we do have to like understand like, oh, I didn't know that tarot cards are witchcraft. I didn't know like crystals were witchcraft. I didn't know like all of this that I was doing was witchcraft. But like you also have to remember like you're opening a portal when you're doing those things, and people don't realize that like when you are, even like when you scroll through TikTok and you see those tarot cards and tarot card readers, that's opening a portal, like even on your phone. So you have to educate yourself and understand, and that's where it comes down to like people come up with this idea of Christians as like la-di-da, we don't know what we're doing, we don't know what's going on. It's like, no, like everything you need to know about witchcraft is in the Bible. You have to educate, you have to understand, you have like when you are a Christian, you are also like full blown into the spiritual realm as well. So that's just something that I would like to add on to that as well.
Yeah.
To what you had to say, Johnny.
Have y'all heard of, sorry to cut you off. You're gonna
No,
say
go ahead.
something, Jacob. Have y'all heard of the book The Secret?
Yes.
So my mom, who is the most Christian woman ever, it's easy for us to be deceived. She was really into this book back in 2017 era, 2016, 2017 era. It's called The Secret. It's talking about how the law of attraction is a thing, and you attract the energy that you bring into the world. And if you want something, you just have to post it
Absolutely.
up around your house, and you have to post these phrases, and you have to like have these pictures and these vision boards and things like that. it's so easy. And I remember buying into that for a little bit. And so I bought into the idea of manifestation. So I was unknowingly doing witchcraft, opening these portals, not knowing what I was doing because of this popular book that essentially said if you have the right energy, if you want something bad enough, if you post things up around anywhere that you can see them, those things are going to belong to you. And
Right.
I had kind of a weird feeling about it, but I was like, that sounds really lit. So I started getting into the idea of manifestation a little bit. Later, I became
And it
convinced
worked,
about
by
it.
the
My
way.
mom.
Tell that story.
Nope, I'm not going to tell that story.
All right.
But yeah, so I got really into the idea of manifestation. It was something that worked. But ultimately, what I was doing by that, I mean, everything comes at a cost. So I'm telling y'all, this stuff is real. You have to be so vigilant as a Christian
Absolutely.
as to what you're getting into because of the fact that it works. If witchcraft didn't work, nobody would be doing it. But
Right.
the stuff is
But
put
you have to be
up in front
careful
of
too.
us. Yeah, the stuff is put up in front of us in media, and it's gonna be really easy to take the bait if you're not in your word. So, and I
Right.
wasn't wrong.
That's actually a great segue to my next point here. So this is a story that I had covered last year, and this is really kind of the snowball of this one. But you guys remember a movie called Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness? It just came out, I believe it was like
Absolutely.
2 years ago, only a couple of years ago.
Didn't see it for Christian reasons.
Yeah,
But
I don't blame you
I didn't watch
because
it at all.
yeah, so I actually did cover this movie, and this is one of the stories that we covered last year. It was Elizabeth Olsen, who is the star of the film, who plays the Scarlet Witch, saying that she's had experiences with witchcraft. She claims that she's a witness to it, but she doesn't actually profess it. So this was during her promotion for this film, and it's a couple of eye-opening statements here in the course of talking about this movie. She says that she was asked if she was into witchy stuff in real life, and always notice how when they present this stuff, they always gotta like downplay it by saying, "Oh, I was just into witchy stuff," or "It was just me and my witchy friends," because they always have to downplay the reality of what they're doing. He says, "I'm a witness to it, but I don't practice it. I have friends that do, and I'm around and people who are around me who do as well." I think she also mentioned Catherine Hahn, who is her co-star in WandaVision, was also into some witchcraft stuff as well. She says that I do feel like that there's some people in my life who are a bit witchy. Olsen said, keep in mind, Olsen is a professed atheist, so according to her, she doesn't like believe in any faith whatsoever, but she is involved with these people who practice witchcraft. And she says that I think that has something to do with being connected to nature and allowing the certain thoughts, surprising dreams, and allowing to take in. So I think there's something in about that is very witchy, she concluded. And then there was just this part where she was talking about Catherine Hahn. Yeah, she was talking about Shahan being her co-star. It's like, we are witches. How amazing is that? It's like we're these powerful women who our men are terrified by, who if they had to murder us because they were so scared of our power, our temptation, and everything that's so mysterious about being a woman. Women are weaponized. So to be ownership of witches, again, this is really fun. This is when they were talking about WandaVision last year, being on that show. And as you see here, in this movie, there's obviously a lot of odes to witchcraft in this film. And I remember watching a video, I can't remember the exact group that did it, but they were essentially talking about, them watching this video. Keep in mind, these are not saved Christians by any stretch of the imagination. And they were literally talking about, I was watching the film and I was really surprised by how demonic it is. Because there's really some demonic stuff in this movie. Now keep in mind, these aren't Christians. These are people who either are atheists or have no religious connotation, but even they were picking up on the demonic nature of these films. And I think what a lot of people don't realize, especially with modern television and movies these days, is that you're watching this film and you're thinking, oh, it's just fake. I mean, it's special effects and blue screen and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, it's a bunch of blue screen, but what you don't understand is that with Hollywood, especially over the last few years, they have actually gotten people who are actually into the occult, whether it be witchcraft or Satanism and other type of occult practices, and they're essentially influencing a lot of these movies because the people behind the scenes, well, we want this to feel as realistic as possible. So they'll get people who are actually practicing the occult, and they'll put rituals in these films. They'll put rituals in the television shows. I remember there were people talking about shows like Lucifer, shows like the Sabrina TV show from Netflix, where they're all doing real demonic witchcraft. This isn't just fake stuff that they're not saying nonsense words like they would do 30 years ago. So now they're doing people who actually are practicing this, and they're presenting it to you like pretty much to your face. And this is one of my biggest criticisms with modern churches. And I'm not throwing any particular church under the bus here, but one of the biggest reasons why the people are so susceptible to this is because they're really not speaking out against this the way that they should be. Because, like you said, a lot of people aren't really practicing this stuff because they want to, but it's because they don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. And if you're one of those people who only really go to church once or twice a week, and you do like a little hour service, and no one's really talking about, hey, there's some really dangerous stuff out there you guys need to be aware of that your kids might be into, you might be into yourself, and you have no idea what's the actual dangers of it behind the scenes because no one's telling you about it. So you just go out there, you're consuming these music, these television shows, you have absolutely no idea about the president that this has behind the scenes, which is one of the big reasons why we're starting this podcast to begin with. But John, let me ask you this. Kind of revealing some of this stuff with like TV and movies. How have you, how have you come to, treat the Hollywood world these days when it comes to movies and TV shows? Are you one of these people that just kind of cut it out entirely now because you don't really know what to trust anymore?
Yeah. I kind of, I really only absorb my own kind of independent, really like fringe media. Like, it's very rare that I go see movies. I think Sam and Christian will both tell you that. Like, I pretty much know nothing about movies. But one thought that kind of came into my mind as like a risk, as like, maybe one of the reasons why we shouldn't be watching this stuff is like the things that you watch. Like, one risk is obviously that you'll go out, seek out more information, and try and like perform witchcraft, for example. But another risk in my mind is kind of a question, is do these like rituals or whatever that you see on screen or hear in your music, do they like actively open portals to your mind, to your body, and to your house? And I would probably argue yes, they do, because when you see children seeing these like scary horror movies that emphasize like demons coming out of the walls or whatever, they'll often have like bad dreams after these, and maybe that's because their mind is a little bit vulnerable, right? Maybe that's
And
because,
still in fear and anxiety.
right, haven't come to know Jesus. They're a little bit too young, and
Yeah.
They're they don't have the ability to like tell the demons in the name of Jesus that they can't come in their mind, they can't come in their body.
Christian, what do you think about this?
Yeah, so to piggyback off of what Johnny just said, so one of the things for me is I've learned in the past 2 years, I would say. I got baptized a year ago at Victory Church in Atlanta. So God's been revealing a lot of this stuff to me and educating me on like what I'm actually seeing, what I'm watching, and even on like TikTok and stuff like that. But I will say, like with movies, it is so crucial what you are watching, because you're opening up a portal. There's demonic activity. I remember watching I think it was WandaVision actually, and I was like, I didn't know this was during I think it was like during COVID, right when it came out. I just remember feeling off. I didn't know why. I didn't understand it. I wasn't educated on it whatsoever. I just remember feeling off about it. And later on, as I got closer to Christ, God did reveal that to me. Like, there's literally like witchcraft in this, and that's why you feel off. And we're all, like I said, we're all spiritual beings. And when you feel that, you feel off, you feel depression, you feel the spirit of depression, feel the spirit of sadness. And you have to be careful what you watch and what you let in, because your eyes are the windows to your soul for sure.
Yep. Sam.
Yeah, no, so it's funny that you asked about that. I talked about that on my TikTok. Just there's a whole shrew of movies and TV shows that I will not watch. And for the record, like everything that I used to be drawn to was occultic. Like my favorite movies were Donnie Darko, Midsummer, Coraline. Still struggle with Coraline because I'm like, it's a kids movie, but like I get weird vibes every time I watch it.
Just real quick, I used to have the entire set of Charmed, the DVD set of Charmed years ago. So yeah,
Yeah,
Got
I
it.
had to give up Harry Potter.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard because like
Yeah.
there's certain things that we're drawn to, and literally like this is messed up. I would watch Midsummer to go to sleep. I'd be like, oh man,
That's
this
how
is
I
my
was,
jam.
too.
Like this is my comfort movie. I got so convicted the closer that I got to Christ about the sort of things that I consumed. Um, I mean, even just I noticed like I used to have a lot of nightmares. You could argue from a secular standpoint that it's just like what you're watching is affecting your dreams. I think it's purely spiritual. So yeah, I've cut off a ton of TV shows. I think essentially everything is demonic. I have like a handful of shows that I'll still watch, but mainly it's just reading C.S. Lewis books and praying to God. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be careful too.
It's funny with me because I kind of came from this from a different perspective because I'm the guy who reviews a lot of these movies and watches a lot of these television shows. But for like the last 10 years, I just kind of stopped watching television shows, not for any religious aspect, just from my perspective. It's like these shows are just terrible. Like I can't watch a show from a quality standpoint. There's nothing actually making me want to watch any of these television shows like these days. Like I watch the show, the writing is horrible, like the characters are just bad. So it's like I just kind of stopped watching TV like entirely for a long time. Like I think the last TV show I really got into was like Last Man Standing. It was like that and Burn Notice were like my last two television shows that I would watch. But now I just see like stuff on. It's like I don't even want to watch any of this stuff anymore. And then with like the movies, like I said, the deeper I really got into watching these films because I watch this. For me, character and story are always the most important things for movies for me. So those are the top two things that I look for in a film. So I'm always looking for, you know, what they're trying to portray with this character, who they're trying to present as the good guy or the bad guy, what's going on behind the scenes. So I'm always critically looking into aspects of the films that a lot of people simply don't. A lot of people just sit there, it's like, hey, it's a popcorn movie, it's 2 hours, I liked it, and then that's the end of it. But when you start seeing exactly what's going on, like I said, when you get what you said, convicted by the Holy Spirit, when you start actually seeing it, you can't really ignore it anymore, right? Like you might think that, oh, okay, I can get away with like watching this, but then you like start watching it, and it's like, yeah, but that does kind of have that little aspect of it. Now I'm aware of it, so I can't pretend like I'm not aware of it anymore. When you start listening to like certain music that you used to listen to, it's like beforehand I can listen to hip hop and rap and hard rock and heavy metal. It's like, oh yeah, this is great. And now I'm gonna start actually like listening to the music, and it's like, oh yeah, that does kind of sound like you're spiting God a little bit there. Then it's like it completely changes like your entire view on like the music that you listen to, right? But a lot of people, like I said, I think it's what's called spiritual blindness. They still don't see it because it has been presented to them, right? I don't know if it's just their personal choice of they don't want to, I guess, move away from some of that stuff, or if they're just, you know, spiritually blind to it. It's like, well, yeah, well, I don't care, or this is something that I absolutely love, and this kind of been my running gag. When you point out exactly just how wicked some of this stuff is, they always come back and tell you, oh, it's just art, bro. Oh, it's just art. Like none of this actually means anything. It's like they're just doing it to get a rise out of you. They're just trying to make you mad. They're just trying to aggravate the Christians. And it sounds like it sounds good. Like if you isolate it to like one person, it's like, okay, everyone in Hollywood is doing this. Like you start seeing like patterns. It's like once is maybe, you know, something you can like write off. Twice it's like, okay, I'm starting to see something here. 3 times it's a pattern. Like you guys clearly are doing something behind the scenes. You're trying to gaslight me and thinking that it's something that it's not, right?
yeah, no, the level of consistency with it. I mean, if you look at the Emmys, what Sam Smith did, like his outfit. I'm trying to think of other examples, but
It's already seen the devil on
Billie
stage.
Eilish. I mean, like the consistency with being straight up blasphemous. Like Beyonce. What was that song in Lemonade? You know what I'm talking about? Where
I don't even go into that. It's so horrible. It's disgusting.
It literally like shakes me to my core. Just wait, what? Someone say something?
No, I was on. Keep going.
Okay, yeah. The song from Lemonade where she has like her whole monologue before it, where she talks about. I don't even want to say it. Anyways,
no, don't talk about it.
Figure out what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Rihanna as well. Yeah,
Rihanna at the Super Bowl. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy.
By the way, just real quick, I was I was with a Christian group during the Super Bowl, and we were all watching Rihanna's performance and whatnot. And keep in mind, it's a lot of women there, so they're all just like, "Oh yeah, Rihanna, this is great and everything." And the first thing I saw her in was the big red dress. Now, of course, having a little bit more knowledge about these things than I do, when I saw the red dress, I knew immediately what that meant. But everyone else just went like right over their heads, like
Wait,
they didn't
can you
even see it
explain
at
the
all.
red
Isn't that
dress?
sad? Oh my
I'm
gosh,
not-
you were in
I'm
a
not in
Christian
on
group and they
this.
didn't even notice?
Well, let's just put it this way. There's a lot of people now. I know this is not really like witchcraft, or it could be witchcraft, but it could just be straight up occult Satanism as well. But if you notice that a lot of these celebrities are wearing black and red in a lot of
Yep.
their
Right.
whether it's they're going to these press events or like an Instagram page. I think I saw this particularly with Kim Kardashian, how I think it was last year they did like kind of like a photo shoot. It was supposed to be like a
Yes.
Christmas photo shoot, and everything was like black and red. It literally looked like walking out of like the mouth of hell, right? And you start seeing like patterns. It's like, oh yeah, it seems like all these people who have always suspected are into this stuff. That seems to be their two go-to colors, and there seems to be a symbolic nature between having a woman in red and representing kind of like in that stage presence and stuff like that. So
Everything's done on purpose, and that's the thing. And like, especially in Hollywood, it's like people don't realize that everything that they're doing is done on purpose, and it's in our faces. And I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of seeing the devil on stage. Like, can we get Jesus up on here more? Like, I'm
maybe
hearing
not in that
you.
town,
It's
but
frustrating.
like, I think there was another aspect. Like I said, one thing that I've noticed too is like when people take the photo shoots with them pouring blood all over themselves, and it's like it's definitely ties to that, especially if you know how important blood is to like the occult and stuff like that. So
Vanessa Hudgens did that, by the way. Just adding
oh
that
yeah,
to you.
there's been
Yeah.
quite a few people
I
who
don't
have
know if
done
you saw
it.
that.
Kylie Jenner has done it. Charlie XCS has all done like they've all done like the exact same thing. Like I said, once maybe a coincidence, twice is a pattern, three times is an agenda. If you don't start putting the pieces together, a lot of stuff goes by. Yeah, time
I agree.
small time
Vatican
here
is
says the
crazy.
Vatican has a sketchy artwork. There's a Vatican episode later on that we'll definitely talk about, especially when we discuss the horror of Babylon. But we'll save that one for another day. We're gonna stay on topic here. But Sam actually had a great segue here because we want to talk about music artists and a lot of stuff that you see here. Let's talk about Taylor Swift. Now, this is actually a story that I was going to cover a while ago. About 4 years ago, I remember Taylor Swift. This is about the time where people were trying to figure out, oh, is she a Trump supporter? Or is she a Democrat? Like, what's her political affiliation,
God
right? Because
forbid.
there was a while there where she just wouldn't say anything like at all. People was like, oh, she's quiet. She must be a Trump supporter, or else she would say something, right? So she did her last stadium tour. I think it was like 2018. The day after that studio tour ended, that's when she came out and it's like, oh yeah, I hate Trump, I hate Republicans, and I support abortion and all that. Like literally the day afterwards, right? Which
Thank
is
God.
Yeah.
but here's the thing, like my mind playing 4D chess, she did that on purpose because she knew that her fan base, like, let's be very honest, pretty sure you guys all know people who are super Taylor Swift fans. Her fan base are mostly, conservative, young, white,
Christians.
Southern
Yeah.
people, right? But she knew that if she supported these things a few years ago, then everyone would have came after her. So she waited until her tour was over and she got everyone's money. Then she was like, oh yeah, by the way, these are everything that I support. So a few years later, here she is, and now she's fully on the left wing train and stuff like that. She's on another stadium tour right now. People are still packing it out. And there's a couple of videos online where people were saying, well, wait a second, is she doing witchcraft at a lot of these stadium shows where she has
Yes.
20, 30, 40,000 people? Probably like 50, 60,000 people here. So here's a video that's circled on. I can't play the audio, obviously, because it'll get copyright claim, but we can play the video exactly here. So you're seeing here what seems to be a witch coven. I know she has a song, a new one that came out fairly recently, which is kind of like the focus of it here. But you're seeing here, like I said, you're one of these people, 60,000 people in attendance, and you're watching this literal ritual happening right in front of your face. You think, oh, this is all just part of the show. And then, well, I'll keep playing the video here. It does get a little bit creepier, as we'll say here.
I gotta admit something. I did go to this concert.
Mm-hmm.
All I can say is pray for her.
I know. So I went to the bathroom during this part though. So clear.
I'm on Facebook right now, and I'm looking at, I just looked up Taylor Swift witchcraft, and
It's everywhere.
yeah.
Facebook link came up, and it's a post from December 15th, 2020. And it says, witches be
Crazy.
like, sometimes I just want to listen to music while pining away / sulking / staring out a window. It's me. I'm witches. Never fear. The Willow Lonely Witch remix is here with a crystal ball after and a link to, I guess, the Willow Lonely Witch remix. I mean, not
People are
only
exposing
is
themselves at this hour. They don't even care anymore.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean
hearing you read that was the funniest thing I've had happen today.
the she's up on stage, with pretty clear imagery of witchcraft, and then here she is on
Hmm.
Facebook just saying right outright she's a witch, and she's remixing songs in a witchcraft way. I didn't even know you could
Yeah.
do a
Yeah.
witchcraft remix on a
You
song
can do anything
until
if you're
Yeah.
now.
brave enough.
But here's the thing, you guys.
ahead.
I just want to point something out because we have people now. I mean, it's really, I want this to be as loud and clear because they're making it loud and clear. They're not hiding anymore. We have Vanessa Hudgens, Elizabeth Olsen, Taylor Swift. The list goes on. Beyonce, like, and people are ignoring it. Like they're
Yeah.
literally ignoring it. They're literally saying, "Yeah, I'm a Satanist" or "I'm a witch," whatever they want to say, and nobody cares anymore. It's all of Hollywood. If you actually pay attention, you actually put on your spiritual eyes and ears, you'll see that they're exposing it. They don't care. Nobody cares anymore. And
Keep in
so I was
mind
mad
the,
at
the
that.
saying the saying used to be that the biggest trick that the devil played was making you believe that he didn't exist. Well,
Exactly.
now he doesn't even have to hide anymore because he could just convince you
Mm-mm.
that he's not even there. And this is the photo truth that I was talking about earlier here. I think I could blow it up just a little bit. Yeah, I'm not sure if it plays out on your end, but keep in mind this is during the Kardashian Christmas party. Now you would ask yourself who would wear red and black in this fashion for a Christmas party. Keep in mind these are supposed to be alleged Christians, the Kardashian family who claims to follow Christianity. But yeah, I
Making their
don't.
kids dress like that, it's disgusting.
Yeah, like I said, if you
Yeah.
walked into this house, would anything about this environment make you think that there's any kind of godly complex here whatsoever?
Yeah, I would leave.
I could get into my conspiracy theories about the Kardashians. There's something not right there.
Go ahead. I mean, we're already talking about it here. So.
Well, okay, fine, I'll do it. I feel like Kris Kardashian is in on some stuff. I think that they sacrificed the dad, Kardashian.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that being a
Because
thing
in
for sure.
Hollywood, so I don't know how familiar y'all are with the ritual of sacrificing your soul to become famous. You can either sacrifice yourself or a loved one. I'm pretty sure the loved one is the dead dad that I don't know the name of because he's not a famous Kardashian.
Robert Kardashian,
I
yeah.
believe it was a few weeks ago we were talking about this on another podcast. It might have been Cider, if I'm not mistaken, but we were essentially talking about that. Yeah, there's a lot of people in Hollywood, and it's kind of weird how like somebody like really close to him ended up dying like right before they became like really super famous. So you might be on something
Brings a
there. Like I
lot.
said, like I said, if it happens like in a vacuum, people don't notice it. But like I said, when you just see it over and over and over again, you have to like really start asking
Right.
yourself the
No,
question: what exactly is going on here?
it's
Well,
consistent. David Dobrik talks about somebody that he knew that had somebody approach them about doing the ritual that's required to get famous. So I mean I fully believe that stuff. All of the big people, the people that you see popping up overnight, I don't think it's a coincidence.
No.
well, don't forget, guys, the Travis Scott concert. You know, Travis Scott, who was got a baby with Kylie Jenner. That wasn't done on accident. Everyone tries to, say, "Oh, yeah, that was an accident. That was an accident." No. How can you have multiple people dying in front of you and you're not going to say anything? Because, we were just at the Ed Sheeran concert. Hopefully he's good. I really hope he is. And
I wouldn't hold my
he
breath.
literally
No.
stopped a fight in the middle of a concert. So I feel like,
That
and
was
he's on top of
Khalid.
a stage.
I have a little rule of thumb too. If you just don't know, like, because I mean, like, we could say, well, we don't really know which celebrities we can and can't trust. Let me just put it this way: this is a good rule of thumb. If your favorite celebrity has ever attended the Met Gala, they're probably compromised. So,
You think so?
yeah,
No, I
That's
think
actually an
there's something
interesting
to that.
theory.
yeah. Just like I said, when a lot of those people, a group of people gather together like that, there's usually some kind of ritual going on there. So yeah, if your
Yeah.
favorite celebrity has attended the Met Gala once in his life, I probably wouldn't trust that person.
What does Tina Fey call it? The party for assholes?
Yeah.
Is that
Yep.
what she said? And I literally thought
Not
that
in
was the
those
funniest
words,
thing I've heard.
but yeah.
Well, if you really want to get into it, go back and check the quote that Richard Nixon left about Bohemian Grove, and I think if you open up your eyes there, if you know
Since you're
about.
bringing it up, let's not be mysterious about it. What's the quote?
Yeah, what's the quote?
I can't repeat it on YouTube because we're on YouTube tonight. If we were on Rumble, we'd be good to go. But
We're talking about witchcraft. I'm surprised YouTube hasn't canceled us yet.
yeah, well, give it time. We're not there just yet. Yeah, shout out to TWRP because, like I said, they talk about this a lot and talk about that with them as well. And then Biggles said that Broadway Joe sold his soul so the Jets go to the Super Bowl. I fully believe that because the Jets, it looks like they've been cursed for the last 55 years. So somebody had to make a deal to the devil for them to win a
Okay,
Super
that's
Bowl.
a waste of a soul, because who the hell is Broadway Joe?
It's Joe Namath was a quarterback. He won Super Bowl III. So I mean, of course, I wouldn't expect you to know football knowledge, but I mean that was a
That's
while
Tom
back.
Brady,
a
there.
waste
that's
of a soul. If a 26-year-old woman who still
Yeah.
lives with her parents hasn't heard of you, then you already lost.
Yeah, the only two things anyone knows Joe Namath for: winning Super Bowl III and getting drunk on Monday Night Football and hitting on a reporter live on the air. Those are the only two things he remembers Joe Namath ever doing. So
I don't remember doing anything, so.
I think
So-
it's interesting. What's your take, Jacob? I know Ice Cube recently came out on I think a Monday talking about how he was like, I'm not part of the Hollywood club. Did you hear about that? I mean, there's Ice Cube. Who else? There's a whole list of people who are. I mean, the list is very small, but
well, I know we'll talk about Ice Cube later on this week when we do the bar room, but essentially his whole
Okay,
thing is
sorry.
that. But I'm just kind of a rundown real quick. He pretty much, I think he was supposed to do a movie a couple years ago, and they wanted him to get the COVID
Right.
shot. He refused to do it, so he left like almost $10 million
That's
on the table just so he didn't have to like do that. And now, of course, people are coming after him. He's saying that he's been trying to build up his brand, but I guess the NBA has been playing games behind him behind the scenes. So now he's going on different podcasts, kind of like exposing people. He's been on like Joe Rogan, Pat McAfee, and a few other podcasts. So people are now coming after Ice Cube, saying that he's a sellout and things of that nature. So we'll get into a deeper discussion on that one, but we're definitely going to talk about that topic there. Cole Cage, who's also on our Barroom podcast every week, who's a big Jets fan, says you clearly haven't seen the Joe Namath commercial. Nope, I can't say that I have. So
what happened with them in a commercial?
no, that's the quarterback we were talking about earlier. So
okay,
yeah,
okay.
the drunk. But so now, like I said, now things are going to start taking a darker turn with this because now we're getting deeper into the rabbit hole here.
Go.
And we're gonna move over to Emma Watson. Now, Emma Watson here was talking about her. I guess she revealed herself to be a witch not too long ago on her 33rd birthday. Which you start listening to that, like I saw Johnny's eyes like light up there because if you know the significance behind the number 33, a lot of things start flaring up. But here you have Emma Watson thanking her coven of witches, and she also referenced Saturn's return in a group of weird social media posts. So if you don't know what the Saturn reference here is, all I can say is do a little bit of research and things start making a lot of sense there. But
Saturn isn't that also a reference to the devil?
oh yeah, there's a lot of
that's where you see Saturn everywhere if you pay attention. Yeah.
oh yeah. So this is Emma Watson from a couple months back saying that her latest social media crazy rant saying that that she has really origins with the occult. She thinks her covenant of witches. Now I think there was a picture of her not too long ago where she looks like she hasn't been in the most healthiest places over the last few years. I'm gonna get to that one in a second. But this is one of the posts that she made here. She says, "Thank you to my witches in my coven who are pivotal in helping me arrive at where and who I am. You are my Avengers. You inspire me and kick ass. It takes a village. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And lastly, thank you to my brother here, Alex Watson, for helping me during the most challenging time, which is incredibly funny. That was her first post that she put on there, kind of exposing that, yeah, she's into, witchcraft, just like a lot of these other celebrities seem to be opening themselves up to witchcraft as well. But I think there was a reference to Saturn's return. Let me see if I can drop it on here. I don't know where in the article they moved it down to. I want to make sure I pick this up too. Was this it? No, that's the Megan Fox story. And trust me, we'll get to her here in a second. I want to make sure I don't miss this part because this is an important part of the story here. Oh, here we go. So she continued her bizarre rant by referencing the astrological concept of Saturn's return. In another Instagram post, she wrote, "This is 33. Holy moly. Before 29, I hadn't heard of a Saturn return as a concept. But let's just say that now I'm well acquainted." So she's telling you that over the course of the last few years, she's gotten pretty deep into some stuff. Now, if you wanted to, some people in like the media outlets tried to say that, oh, she's just talking about astrology. It's nothing really that serious. It's talking about just zodiac signs and things of that nature. However, if like you said earlier, Christian, Saturn is analogous to Luciferianism and Satan himself. The Saturn Satan conspiracy has been out there for many years. Many believe that it's associated due to the Saturn is associated to Satan due to his historical association with death and destruction. And the theory goes in ancient mythology, Satan was described as the god of time and harvest, which if you go into ancient false gods like Baal, Moloch, and stuff like that, they seem to believe a lot of the same things. So you think that, hey, maybe these things are connected here. But there's also cycles of destruction in the old way, and the destruction of the old to make way for the new. Now, this is something that Hollywood has completely adapted over the last few years. You see them describe this with like TV shows. I know there was a Disney Plus trailer for the new Star Wars show. I think it's like Ahsoka or something like that. I don't know the exact name of the character, but literally the first 5 seconds of the trailer, it says, "Oh, we have to destroy the old in order to make way for the new," or something around those lines, right? And you hear that a lot from Hollywood, like even in The Last Jedi, Kylo Ren is basically saying that you have to let the past go. We have to get rid of the old. Stop hanging on to like the old way of thinking and go into the new way of thinking. And that's where we start getting a lot of these new age type teachings that are just creeping up into television and movies. And like I said, people who do their ears don't perk up when they hear stuff like that. They'll just be completely susceptible to it, and they just believe that, oh, there's nothing wrong with this. It's just entertainment and television. And like I said, there's so many things that they're telling you that if you're not wise to it, it'll just go over your head. But you don't realize just how deep and dark into a place they're bringing you here by teaching this type of stuff. So Johnny, I know you saw a couple of references there that sparked your interest. What do you think of Emma Watson and her love of quote unquote Saturn?
Oh, well, I have a lot of thoughts here. I mean, it's interesting that she's talking about Saturn's return, like Satan's return.
Yep.
And here we are on the edge of, what the big they likes to refer to as the Great Reset, while Hollywood is advertising out with the old, out with the Bible, out with tradition, out with male and female, and in with the new, and just completely changing up everything as we know it. It's pretty interesting how things are converging in that way. It's almost like they're getting people used to hearing these terms, used to throwing out everything they've ever known, and just accepting some false reality, to put it.
Hey, it's funny because obviously you guys know that we've been talking a lot about Revelation over the last few weeks to few months, and look, we always kind of talk about it. If you believe the Bible, you read Revelation, it does say, hey, Jesus is coming back one day. He will be coming back as the lion more than the lamb.
Yes.
But at the same time, guess who also is supposed to be making a return as well? Satan. It does foretell a final battle between good and evil, and there are people within certain communities that believe that when that battle happens, that evil is going to win this time around. So when you hear things like, oh, we're anticipating Saturn's return or the Saturn return concept, it's like there's more into that. But like I said, if you're spiritually blind, if you don't really know much about the Bible, because look, we can focus on like a lot of religions here, but if you look at the way our society is right now, in a lot of aspects, our society is rebelling against God. And you won't know
Right.
that unless you actually read the Bible and you see that, oh, yeah, this verse says not to do this. Oh, what's being popularized in society now? Oh, the Bible says that marriage is between man and a woman. Oh, okay, now we have alternative lifestyles. Now we have adultery that's being popularized. Like, oh, no, it's just completely normal. It's like, there's a verse that I'm gonna get to later on. I'm gonna save that for the end of our show. But like I said, you have to be kind of spiritually inclined to see not only just how evil a lot of aspects of our society is, but how much they're rebelling against the one true God. So
Right. I'll say also, that's a great catch. I didn't see, as a Christian, we've been seeing a lot of, return to Jesus in the past couple of years, and now you see her saying Saturn return. That that just is like insane to me. What a crazy moment of revelation that I just had. But I also want to add in, she needs prayers because I remember being little and watching an old interview, and she was asked, in an interview, if you could bring anything on a deserted island, what would it be? And she said, the Bible. So these people that we are talking about, Vanessa Hudgens, Taylor Swift, and Emma Watson, whoever we talk about, all need prayers, to find Christ, and because they definitely want something, they crave something. I just wanted to add that in there for sure.
I do want to. I mean, you can get into a bigger thing about Hollywood too, but uh, people who we're talking about here, yeah, they do need prayers because it's very easy to hate these people just with the things that they're doing because it is wicked. But there's another aspect you have to understand about Hollywood is that they prey on people when they're young, and there's a lot of very evil things that are done to these people while they're in the industry that turns them into the people that they are today. So you look, I said. Emma Watson started in the business when she was like 10 years old, maybe somewhere like even like younger than that. So, like I said, maybe that was the way she thought at a much younger age. But being 20 years into the Hollywood bubble, essentially, and being accustomed to the things that are done out there, it can completely warp your view of reality in a lot of aspects, too. So, a lot of these people are,
Yeah.
we look at them because they have money and power. We look at them at a kind of a different life, but they're just as lost as a lot of the other people out there that are following them, right? They
Right.
may think that they have like a heightened view, I guess a level of like intelligence that they know more secrets that the rest of us don't know. Like, obviously that's a big thing with like Freemasonry, right? It's like, oh, you're
Right.
you're super aware, you're aware of like the real secrets of like the world, how the world really operates, and things of that nature. But it's like, yeah, in a lot of ways, you're just as blind as everybody else because you're following people who are leading you to the path of destruction and you're not even smart enough to realize it. So well, we hope that these people wake up one day and see
Find
the
Christ.
errors in their and wake up in Christ and see the errors of their ways because they're being marched to the wide gate of destruction right now and they don't even realize it.
Right.
And we
And that.
can't really blame them for being deceived, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like they haven't been exposed to the truth because the church hasn't been speaking up, right?
It's
Like
been
that's one
Yeah.
of the
difficult.
reasons, right? And also, we know Lucifer comes as the light bearer. We know that, he's like,
Yeah.
oh, he promises all these blessings, all these gifts,
Hmm.
all this money, all this fame, all these things, and then he turns around and stabs you in the back.
Right.
And
Right.
I guess these people haven't been stabbed in the back yet, but once Saturn returns, they'll see.
Well,
Yeah.
we don't want that, but I will say that, like, as a Christian, our job is, yeah, we want to expose it, we want to educate, but we also want to pray for them. We want them to find Christ, and everyone to find Christ really at the end of the day. But I will say this, like, um I just feel in my heart that I'm 29, and Emma Watson said that, like, that really hit me, that she didn't know any of this until 29, and she, like you said, Jacob, like, she was submerged into Hollywood at such a young age, and everyone around her, she never probably heard the word no.
Yeah.
She only heard a bunch of yeses and a bunch of people telling her what she could do, and I mean, I'm 29 and I just got baptized a year ago. So,
Hmm.
and I'm not even famous. So, and I dealt with witchcraft. So, if I was, and I'm just putting myself into her shoes, if I was famous, I don't know where I would be today, because that's one of the things that if you feel like you don't need God.
Yeah, because
So
when you have, I mean, that's like Jesus talked about this many times throughout the Bible. It's kind of like the story with like the rich guy who wanted to be saved. Jesus told him to give up his earnings, and he was disappointed because he had a lot of earnings and he didn't want to give them up, right? And he said that it's harder for a rich man to make it into heaven to a poor man because a rich man are under the assumption that they probably don't need Jesus, or they don't want to give up, they don't want to sacrifice what is necessary to be saved in the kingdom of God. When you have who knows how much money like in the bank or whatnot, right? And I think what attracts a lot of people, I noticed especially towards like the late 2000s, it was a lot of the television that was aimed towards kids. You look at this at like Disney Channel and Nickelodeon, but there was a lot of shows that we were producing during that time where the point of the show is, oh, I want to go to Hollywood and I want to be a star. And the reason why I want to be a star because I want to be famous and have lots of money and lots of women and lots of cars, and I want to live the high life and stuff like that. So you saw that with shows like Hannah Montana, Sunny with a Chance. You saw that with like Victorious, Zoe 101 to an extent. All of these like super popular shows with really young people were all promoting that idea of fame, money, materialism, and things of that nature. And you see this in the Bible as well. Now, we talked about kind of like the foretelling battle of Satan and Jesus. Well, I think it's in Luke 5, Luke 4, chapter 5, I believe is the scripture here. And it says here that, the devil is taking him up on the high mountain. And this is when Jesus was in the mountains for 40 days and he was being tempted by Satan. And it says that he showed them all the kingdoms in the world. And the devil said to upon him, all of this authority I give you, all their glory, for this to have been delivered to me, and I'll give it to you as you wish. Therefore, if you worship me, it will all be yours, right? Now, Jesus said, to get behind me, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God. He be the only one you should serve, right? So the devil tried to tempt Jesus with all these riches and all of these material things. It's like, turn to me, worship me, and I'll give you the world, right? Jesus said no. Now, obviously, Jesus was born, lived a life without sin. The rest of us, not that easy, right? So you have to understand that there's a lot of other people out there. If they were presented the exact same deal of worship me and I will give you the world, a lot of people will just take that deal, especially people who aren't, Christians, who don't believe in, the Bible, who don't believe in, good or evil and those concepts. They're just thinking, oh yeah, I'll just worship this being and I'll just be rich and famous and get everything that I want. Sure, I'll take that deal. And then that's where they get you, right? It's the idea that, oh, okay, I'll just be given everything and then nothing will happen to me down the road. And I think at a certain point, people realize just how deep they are. And even if they are smart enough to understand that I made a terrible mistake, now you're in so deep, it's almost impossible to get out, because especially if you get like really deep into like a lot of these occult communities behind the scenes, they're not just gonna let you out, especially if you know a lot of their secrets. So if you're in there and it's like, oh, I made a mistake, I need to repent, you're kind of in a bad way, which is why people need to be smart enough to the reality of just how dangerous this stuff is.
Right.
Yeah.
So Jacob, I want to add on to that is if you are part of the occult or part of the Illuminati, whatever it might be, and you want to get out, you have to first go to Christ. That's the only option you have. You have to go to God, because I can't remember where it says this in the Bible. One of y'all might know, but it's like, come to me and then the devil will flee from you, or something like that.
Resist the devil, and he'll flee from you. Yeah.
Right. So that's the only way out, is to truly, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but there's definitely instances like you're not too far to ever get to if you still have the air in your lungs, you can be saved.
Yeah,
sure.
you're talking about James 4:7 there. It says, submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee for you. That's the verse.
Yeah.
There you go. That's it.
So,
Thank you.
just to cut in here, Eminem actually has a song. You said something that kind of sparked my attention. So you said that once people realize what they've done, it's too late. Eminem has a song called My Darling, where he literally talks about selling his soul, having a conversation with the devil, and the devil's like, too late, your soul's mine. I'm not going to read these lyrics, they're pretty explicit.
Yeah.
But the point is, I think most people in mainstream media like this. Most of the big artists that we see, they've done this. They've sold their
Yeah.
soul, and some of them even talk about it.
But
And they don't
here's the
know.
big deception in that in and of itself. It's like this idea that, oh, I could sell my soul to the devil. Well, here's the reality. Your soul is not the devil's to own to begin with. Like, your soul belongs to God. That's why when you're in judgment day, you're not going to get judged by Satan. You're going to get judged by the Father and the Son, and they're going to put
Right.
judgment upon you. So I think a lot of people, like I said, they get these people who don't know anything, and they present them like this deal. It's like, oh yeah, sell your soul to the devil and pledge your allegiance to him. Well, it's like, well, your soul is not his to own. Like, he'll make you believe that your soul is his to own. Why? Because he's the king of lies, and at the end of the day, he wants your soul to be condemned into hell. So he'll tell you anything that you want to hear in order to send you to that place. But you have to understand the truth, and the only way you'll know that truth is through Christ. So.
And
Yeah.
just to take that even further, you said your soul is not his to own. Your soul isn't even yours. God created you. God created your mind. God created your body, your spirit, and your soul.
Mm-hmm.
It's all God's. That's and I think that goes into exactly why Satan's gonna be effortlessly thrown into the fiery pits of hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the day judgment inevitably comes.
That's part of the good news. The good news is that in the war of good and evil, good has already won. They just haven't realized it yet. Like, you have to
Yeah.
understand that with all this evil stuff that you guys are seeing in the world right now, there's nothing that's happening right now that God hasn't already foreseen, that God doesn't allow. Like, Satan is not, let's put it this way. I know a lot of people are afraid about what's going on with like AI, because it looks like they're trying to replace humanity with a lot of stuff that's going on right now. You have to
In the Bible.
understand. Exactly right. But you have to understand there's nothing that Satan is planning or is putting together that God hasn't already foreseen. Like, there's no surprises. That's like, God's not gonna be sitting there like, oh, I didn't see this coming. It's like, that's kind of like the deception that comes from evil. They're trying to make it seem like we actually have a chance. It's like, no, the war's already been bad and you guys lost. That's why
Right.
you're in hell in the
Absolutely.
first place, because you tried to rebel against God and you failed. So
But no, I mean, Jacob, you're adding on to something that's a great reminder, because a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people think that, I mean, the devil does a really good job of lying, and he will whisper in all of our ears, if you know it or not, all these lies day and night, and it says that in the Bible. So, I mean, I wish I could tell Eminem right now that it's not too late for him, even though he may have
He
sold
did a
his
Jesus song since
sold his
he
soul.
wrote that song, so good news.
well, he's got a long
yeah.
ways to go for repentance from there.
Well,
So
you
he's
know,
had
it doesn't
He made
take
a
a long
Christian
way
song
to
with
be
cuss words
saved.
in it,
All
so
you
I'm
have to do
like-
is
I said, I'm not saying that. I'm just going to put it out there. Just doing one Jesus song isn't going to be like, that's the end of it. Because, I mean, Kanye tried that a few years ago.
He had a couple of F-bombs in there. I was like, so close. We can't
Yeah.
make it to church,
I know.
but
I remember
almost.
thinking that too. I was like, oh, we're doing so well. I mean, you know what? Everybody has got their own journey, but if I could, I would tell him, it's never too late to repent. It's never too late. And the Lord can take
Yeah.
a magnifying glass and zoom in and find the littlest, smallest speck of goodness in your heart. And you know what? That's one thing that you have to remember, is that you are loved. And that's one thing people believe that, like, even I struggle with it on a daily basis. Is I go, well, oh, I've sinned too much. God doesn't want me. God doesn't want me. And you know what? That's not true. That's a lie from the devil. So
Yeah, keep in mind, fear, anxiety, doubt, those are not things that come from God. So
absolutely.
when you have a better understanding of that, you have a better understanding of how this game is played. But here's
Yeah.
another a quick little story before we go to even darker story here. Well, I guess this is kind of dark when you really think about it. Megan Fox. Now, this is a story that we covered a while back ago that even I didn't know all the full aspects of until we talked to our buddy Orange Hat, who's a Catholic, and he opened my eyes to something that I didn't know. But this is a story that we did cover a while back ago. I think John Trent actually did this story. Yeah, John is the one that did this story. This wasn't my story, but Megan Fox, who has also admitted to being a witch over the last few years. She's admitted to blood drinking rituals and stuff like that. So she seems to be into some very dark magic tragic here over the last couple of years. But she threatened to perform a carcass eating ritual on a guy who basically called her out for turning her sons into girls, trying to, I guess, do some kind of like weird transgender thing with her own kids. This is a story, I think, Robbie Starbuck, I believe his name. Yes, Robbie Starbuck, who's like a political commentator on like Twitter and things of that nature, and like more on the right wing side. He wrote that, these are Megan Fox's sons. We used to live in the same gated community. Our kids played at the park and saw two of them have full blown meltdowns as they were forced by their mother to wear girls' clothes, and their nanny were trying to console them. This is pure child abuse. Pray for them. So this is a picture of Megan Fox and her. Keep in mind, her three sons. Those are all boys in the picture there. These are not girls at all. I think that's like another picture that was posted on top of this. So he was commenting on this. Apparently he knows Megan Fox, or at least knew her at some point. They were kind of from the same area or whatnot. So he was putting up. He also said that, more context, this is around 5 years ago, so they were younger in this picture. Another witness in the nanny of the boys said this. So he says that there's other people who backed up this side of the story. He said this one started, the other one chimed in, the third child was not involved, right? So he goes on to say that we knew California wouldn't do anything about it because the state celebrates this type of stuff, and she's famous. And like he said, the weirded that I worked with Megan once on a small shoot about a year ago before she moved into our community. She was very nice to me at the time, so I was shocked when this happened later on. Just a very weird situation. Those boys clearly weren't happy. Well, Megan found out about this story and basically went on a tirade threatening this guy for talking about her sons, who once again you can see here all wearing dresses in this picture here. And then, yeah, this is her response to all this. She says, I don't want to give you this attention because clearly you're a clout chaser, but let me teach you something. Irregardless of how desperate you may become at any given time to acquire wealth, power, success, or fame, never use my children as leverage or social currency, especially under I'm butchering that name. Moving on. Erroneous pretense, exploiting my child's gender identity. Okay, here we go with the Hollywood lumbo. To gain the attention of your political campaign as nothing but the wrong side. I'll put you on nothing but the wrong side of the universe. Keep in mind, I don't think Robbie even has a political campaign. I think she was just going on here. And then she wrote this. She wrote, I've been burned at the stake by insecure, narcissistic, impotent little man like you many times, yet I'm still here. You effed with the wrong witch. So that was her post here. Then she posted this picture right here, which is a screenshot of a carcass eating ritual. So this is a naked woman eating the dead carcass of some animal that was down there. Now, Orange Hat told me, because apparently he knew this, but we didn't know this at the time, that this is apparently a death curse that witches put on people. So essentially what she's doing in this picture here is that she's eating the carcass of a dead animal because she's trying to put a death curse on another person. And this is essentially the threat that Megan Fox was trying to put on Robbie Starbuck for talking about her kids maybe not doing child abuse. So for a lot of these people out here that think that, oh no, it's just Wicca, it's not really witchcraft, or I mean, it's witchcraft, but it's not like satanic witchcraft or anything like that. People who try to convince themselves that what they're into isn't really as dark and demonic as it truly is. It's like, it may start like that at one point, but it's always going to eventually roll down into this, where you start dealing into some really dark stuff. Because when you start seeking, let's just say, a certain community that isn't of God, and you start thinking, oh, wow, I feel so powerful, I feel so empowered, but now I need more, it's only going to lead you to much darker places as you go on. So, Chris, what do you think about Megan Fox going even deeper into the occult here?
Yeah, so this is a great example because she was originally a Christian before, at the beginning of her fame. I don't know if you guys ever knew that, but she went to a Christian private school as a kid, and she found God. But that's the trouble with lukewarm Christianity, I would say, because although she was once considered herself a Christian, she went down to this path. I will also say that she's really smart with her words, because with somebody who isn't as spiritually, I would say, awake would probably think, oh yeah, well, Megan Fox made a great point. He's just a clout chaser. But really, at the end of the day, I mean, that is abuse. I mean, that's abusing. He's just trying to expose her for who she really is and what she's really been doing, what she's been up to. And, I think that's what's going on for sure.
Oh yeah, keep in mind there's been a long line of Hollywood celebrities over the last few years turning their kids, their children, by the way, transgender and all that stuff like that. Like you have like Gabrielle Union's been another big example of this.
Yeah,
Charlize
Angelina
Theron.
Jolie.
Charlize Theron adopted a couple of kids from Africa and then turned them trans. Said that they revealed to me when they were 3 years old that they're transgender, so now they're gonna be
Yeah,
raised as girls. It's like there's no such thing as transgender kids, especially transgender 3 year olds. It's like 3 year olds can
right.
barely talk, and even when you're like 5 years old, the only thing you care about is like recess and Power Rangers. So don't tell me that they were woke to their gender identity and identity at 3 years old. That's an absolute lie.
I would say, I wonder if I know this is like a ritual that a lot of Hollywood elitists do. Um, so I wonder if it's a form of ritual on their own children, almost like sacrificing their own kids without sacrificing their own kids, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Do you think that's like a thing? What would you say?
Like I said, well, like when you start seeing this as a pattern come out of Hollywood, there's something behind it. We may not know the exact reason, but we know that whatever they're doing behind the scenes is not good. What does the Bible always say? You can tell somebody from their fruit, whether it's good fruit or bad fruit, and we're seeing a lot of bad fruit come from Hollywood. So it wouldn't surprise me at this point if there was something more nefarious going on back there.
And
Right.
this situation with Megan Fox kind of makes me think, obviously this is like speculation, but maybe there is some sort of legitimate agenda behind it. First we were looking at Kim Kardashian, former Christian woman. Now we're looking at Megan Fox, former Christian woman. It kind of makes me think, is Satan, is, Hollywood, are they both seeking out maybe formerly Christian people or even like actively Christian people to kind of turn them into this, to almost encourage people to turn from God, and drive our, whole culture, drive our whole population into this like satanic rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the biggest things right here I want to point out is they attack the men. I don't know if you noticed that, but all of her children are boys, and now she's trying to dress them up as girls, and it's almost like there's a lack of the male leadership in today's society, and they attack families. That's a huge thing. That when I say they, I mean the elitists, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
Well, just real quick,
yeah,
if you notice a pattern here, the last few stories we've talked about, all these women have come out and said that, oh yeah, we've always had to deal with weak, insecure men who fear us who we really are, and it's like they're always
exactly.
talking about like they're the women of like the Salem witch trials who were like burned at the stake. They adopt that ideology, but like I said, we're living in a society now, especially in Hollywood, which is so super feminist right now. I mean, you can't even call it first wave anymore. We're on like the third or fifth wave here at this point, but it's all about to not only just attacking families, but attacking men in general, making men weaker, making them submit to, hey, we're not going to do our society led by men anymore. It's going to be a society led by women. And this is something that I always think about too. By the way, this is a little picture here of Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox in a very, very blasphemous outfit here. Keep in mind, she has 3 boys. So this is a mother here taking pictures like this and part of their little like witch coven here or whatever the case may be. But you notice here with like I said, this Hollywood and like this trend here. And look, you have to go all the way back to like Genesis and the fall, right? It's like you have to think to yourself, well, who ate the apple first, right? Was it Adam or was it Eve? And it seems like that when you go back that far, kind of trace where this whole thing started, there's a reason why all of these evil organizations and practices are targeting women, because somebody learned a long time ago that it's much easier to get women to fall than it is to get for men. And this is simply why they attach all these things to women. This is why throughout the course of this night here, we're talking about a group of women and they're trying to attract other women. It's like they know that there's something there with women where they're easier to get to. They're easier to either fool or convince or to corrupt in a lot of sense. And that's why you're seeing kind of that gendered attack. And the reason why they're going after men and try to tear down the leadership of men is because it's our biblical duty as men to protect women and to protect women from being corrupted from stuff like that. So if you can separate the man from the woman and separate, that biblical hierarchy, which is supposed to be, God first, then the man, then the woman, then the child, in that order going down. If you can disrupt that and throw it all out of whack, then everyone suffers as a result. And as you see here, Megan Fox, I believe, is divorced from her husband. I don't even know if he's in the picture anymore, but she's seemingly running the household, and you can see what she's doing to her own children. So when you cut God out, when you cut man out, when you cut out all of the hierarchy influence there, you see eventually what you end up with. You end up with someone like this rather than someone who's more biblical in their sense.
Yeah, and piggybacking off of the idea of kind of the reversal of roles in society of men and women, I think we're seeing a lot of deconstruction of masculinity within popular media. Look at the most prime example I can think of is Harry Styles, just the way that he dresses. Sam Smith, y'all could probably think of some other examples, but it's kind of crazy how the roles are getting reversed, where the women are now leading the show and the men are now stepping down into a position of submissiveness and dressing like girls.
But the weird thing is, like, people like Bruce Jenner, right now, Caitlyn Jenner,
canceling you for calling him Bruce.
Yeah, like men who turn into women are now glorified as greater than like actual biological women. It is like,
oh yeah, that's actually a good point.
Backwards.
I didn't think about that.
He won Woman of the Year.
Yeah,
like he was a woman for less than 365 days, and he was Woman of the Year.
Well, there was a trans woman who just won like some pageant competition. I think it was like Norway or something like that, or one of those like Nordic countries.
Yesterday.
And then there was a South Korean guy who basically identified as a woman for like some kind of like cross country race or like biking race, won the event, and then after the event condemned the trans community, telling them stop going into women's events and beating women. So he literally did it as a statement of this is why men shouldn't be competing against women in competition. And so people are picking up on this, and it's kind of funny how we've talked about so many stories here, and like people still aren't seeing what's going on here. But I do have one last story here before we wrap things up, and this is one that it kind of took us for a role, to say at least, because this is something that I was going to cover with Bounding into Comics here. I'm going to show a little bit of it because it's not officially posted here yet, but I just wanted to show you kind of the transcript of what was said. This is American Idol star Jimmy Levi, who claimed that he was a witness to occultism and pedophilia in Hollywood. So this is a guy who I think like 4 or 5 years ago was on American Idol. He did songs with like XXXTentacion and I can't remember the other girl's name. It's like BB Rare or something like that. I can't remember. Maybe you guys know who she is.
That sounds right.
I have no idea.
Yeah. So he had gotten in with a lot of these people, like, in Hollywood, in the music industry. And by the way, I will say this, just a quick little note here. You would notice that the most evil industries, the two most evil industries where you see a lot of like occult stuff going on, is the music industry and the fashion industry. If you're really paying attention, especially the high-end fashion industry, but we'll talk about that one on a different day here. But yeah, so this guy did an interview with Jason Whitlock. This is about a month ago. When was this originally done? Oh, this is submitted.
It says.
Yeah, this was a month ago, and he sat down with Jason Whitlock, and he was talking, and was like, "Yeah, so tell me about how you became a Christian." Now, keep in mind, this is a guy who was a Jew, but he wasn't a practicing Jew. He was a secular Jew, so he really didn't believe in anything at all. He comes from a family who has strong occult ties. His grandmother was a medium for Elvis and Michael Jackson back in like the 70s and 90s, stuff like that. Not 90s but 80s. During that time, his mother was a medium as well, so he also claims to be able to like hear and like hear spirits and things of that nature. So he's very deep into the occult and his family. He talked about the night that brought him to Christ, and basically saying that he was in a mansion party with Ella in LA, saying that they were there with a bunch of like influencers and major celebrities and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, he was at this party, and this is what he says here: "I was at one house party. We were upstairs. They were having some sort of gathering. He walks into a room and he sees that there were naked old men in a room and that there were children upstairs. And he said that really shocked me. And it's like I was there to be an influencer, and like everyone who was there was influencers and actors." He says that after this horrifying discovery, he found out that the home of this Hollywood party that was located in, that the home was owned by a high-ranking member of the Satanic Temple. And then he said he realized that he basically walked into a satanic ritual being performed, and he started asking like major questions afterwards, right? Because like I said, his background, the way he grew up, he wasn't, he's a Jewish guy, so he doesn't believe in Christianity. He didn't believe in Satan or anything like that. He thought that it was all made up. He says that I was like, wait a minute, Satan's not real. It's like I know of Hasatan, but I didn't know that Satan was real. It's not like the Christian figure or like what these guys said, but it's very real. And he's talking to a guy when he told him this story, what he saw. A guy essentially tried to be like, no, it's very real. I want you to introduce you to these people. So he started meeting people in the industry who are part of this occult, who are part of this Satan worshiping cult. And they say, oh yeah, we were awake to the occult. We started sharing our different experiences. And that's where he realized that Satan was real, right? And when he made that realization, when he finally came to terms, it's like, oh wait, Satan is real, and I am on basically the wrong side of history here. He got terrified. And he was like, dude, I'm using my platform to speak out about, demonic stuff, and I'm promoting a whole bunch of demonic stuff. He was afraid right at that moment that it's like, if I die right now, I'm going to hell. Like there's just no other way about it, right? So he said that, when he started to have these questions, people in the industry started coming at him, talking about, hey, you better shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. They were very defensive about him when he started talking about pedophilia. Some of his favorite actors were reaching out very defensive about this when he started speaking out against it. So after realizing how deep into the occult he had gotten, he had basically ran back to Florida with his Christian friend and asked him, how to be saved. And his buddy, who was a born again Christian, read him the gospel of Jesus Christ, and he converted like literally like that day. And ever since then, he's been promoting like songs about Christ, explaining like a lot of stuff, trying to expose a lot of stuff that's going on in Hollywood. He said it's about 70-30 as far as just how evil Hollywood is. He said I think it's about 70%. There's a big chunk of people who are on the good side of humanity that they realize what's going on. I'm sorry, I think he said like 30%, but yeah, he said that there was a lot of people there who know what's going on. They're aware of him being, Satan being the angel of music on the music side of things. But at the end of the day, there are people who are, more concerned about, their well-being, who are more worried about money, more worried about family. So nobody really says anything, at least not publicly, right? So everyone just kind of keeps a tight lip on everything. And he says that the money always becomes their God, and that's why nobody there speaks up. Now here's, I guess you could say, the scary part about this whole situation. As we were writing this article, and Josh, you guys saw earlier in the chat talking to us, he asked me that, hey, the interview got taken down off of YouTube. Do you have like another source or whatnot? And it's like, oh yeah, I'll just link you to like the full interview, because there was like the cutout portion of the interview and the full interview. I went back to the full interview, and they cut out his part of that interview out of there as well. So the interview itself has been completely scrubbed off of social media. The only link to his comments is the one we have here for Bounding, and the one they put up for The Blaze, which is Jason Whitlock's outlet, the one he works for. But ever since he did that, ever since he admitted that, they scrubbed that interview off. You can't find it anywhere right now. Like I said, this is a guy who verifiably was in American Idol. He did hit songs with high level people in the music industry. He says that, he was there, this is what he saw, and then now he's trying to expose the things that were going on here. He also said that Exorcist Tentacion was another guy who was big into the occult as well. And if you listen to like a lot of his stuff, that it's not very surprising that he was into kind of like Satanism and more darker stuff as well. But I think he said that when he died, because he got gunned down a few years ago in Florida, not too long ago. So obviously not a guy who was saved, but when he got gunned down, that's what really like turned the switch on him. And it was like, yeah, a lot of my people who I was close to are dying now, and we're starting to realize that we're on the wrong side of this thing, and that's what really turned his life around. So there are people out there who I think, like I said, maybe the same way like him, they don't think that any of this is real. They don't think that any of this is something to be, I guess, taken seriously or anything like that. They all kind of laugh it up. But then when they realize just how real it is and they realize how deep in it they are, that's when they completely flip a switch. Some people will be like, hey, look, I don't want anything to do with this. This is not what I signed up for. Then you also have some other people who are like, I'm all in on whatever this is. So kind of some eye-opening stuff going in from Hollywood. So some last thoughts here. I'll start with Johnny. What do you think about Jimmy Levi trying to expose what's going on behind the scenes?
All I gotta say is it's pretty crazy that Hollywood is trying to, cover all these interviews up, and at the same time allowing all these people that we talked about to come out and say, witchcraft, gives you things. Witchcraft, can, I guess, perform like death curses and like, kill people that you don't want around anymore.
Yep.
It's honestly pretty confusing to me, I guess their messaging, but I guess that's a part of the game plan, if you ask me.
Yep. Very, very dark game plan at that. What do you think about this, Chris?
Yeah. So I followed some of his story as well, and he said that that one of the biggest like red flags, like after he won American Idol, is that he had to sign a contract. I think it was like Columbia Records, saying that he can sing about anything, long as it didn't say the word or the name Jesus Christ. And he was like, "That's weird," because like you said, he's Jewish, and so I remember him saying that that's something that stuck out to him. But I'm really grateful, and I think it's interesting to be alive in this time where people are waking up. It's like these are some serious things that have been going on for years, and nobody said anything until, I mean, it's 2023, but this has been going on for way longer than we probably could ever imagine. So I think it's a great thing that we have someone like him to shine some light on how evil the music industry really is.
By the way, like I said, he was saying that his grandmother was running occult activities with people as far back as Elvis and Michael Jackson. So it's like I think people have started to like really like see it in like the last like 10, 20 years or so, but this goes back way further than that. And there was a movie that me, Rick, and Rob reviewed a while back ago called Babylon, and it's essentially about the early days of Hollywood, like in the 1920s. It's not a movie that I recommend to anyone whatsoever. It's a 3-hour long movie and it's absolutely terrible, but it basically portrays like 1920s Hollywood as like the most degenerate, evil place you can possibly think of. Like,
wow,
at all,
100
like,
years ago.
Yeah, and like we're talking about like the first 5 minutes of the movie. There's like sex orgies going on. People are doing drugs off of like dead hookers and stuff like that. Like this is what Hollywood is telling you. This is how the industry was back in the 20s, like I said, a century ago. And it was like it was evil and degenerate back then. So you wonder like just how long this has been going on with this industry.
Isn't that crazy? They're already exposing themselves. They have been exposing themselves for years, and now it's like they don't care because they think that they're winning. And it's just a 40 game of chess at this point, I would say, and God's gonna win. But it really blows my mind. I think COVID really shook a lot of things up and revealed a lot of things to us, and we had to question the world around us, like what is actually happening, what am I actually watching, what's going on. And I'm really grateful for some whistleblowers in Hollywood that are exposing this. And I know we're wrapping it up, but Sound of Freedom was a good movie, and it just shows how much has been going on for years. And like Jimmy said, he saw. I mean, that's disgusting. He saw naked old men, okay, with children.
Yeah.
That's just that. I don't know if anybody saw that or caught that on, but that's disgusting. And what do you do when you see that? I mean, at that point, what do you do?
Because that's the thing, though. It's like you can't be like, "Hey guys, they're messing with kids upstairs," because you have to assume that, well, probably everyone in the party knows that because it's owned by a guy who runs a satanic temple. So you can't really be like, "Hey, I need help up here," because everyone else is in on it. Then next thing you know,
how do you save those
targets
kids?
on your back.
It's disgusting. Yeah. It's disgusting, and that's another thing. Is like don't know your way out, and you're bound by these contracts. Saying XYZ. That's what's terrifying, is like at this point you're in a flight or fight survival mode, even though there's so much disgusting behavior going on all around you. And these are people all around us, all of our friends idolize these people. And it's horrible.
Like I said, there's a lot of Christians out there who really truly love, like, these celebrities, these music stars. Like they've become kind of idols in and of itself. I mean, well, what's the first commandment? Thou shalt not worship any god behind me. Thou shalt not idolize. And it's like we completely like overlook that. And it's like, as we were saying earlier, this is the type of stuff that I wish more churches would speak out against, right? Because there are churches out there that will do. You will have like some Baptist churches out there that will say stuff like this. You will have some Calvinistic churches out there that will speak out about this. Yeah, but like I said, on the bigger scale, it's like a lot of these, these churches are only preaching, like kind of like sometimes they don't even like read the Old Testament like at all, which is kind of like weird to me. But it's like they only try to do it like kind of like this empowering type of sermon, which is more like human centered and like me centered, saying about, well, if I believe in God, then I'll get my blessings and stuff like that. And it's like you're just completely missing the point. And by doing that, like I said, you're doing your church a complete like a disservice there. It's like you guys have all these people here, you have these massive attendance, but at the same time, you don't really preach anything that's spiritually sound. And by doing that, you're letting people live in this world that's so evil at its core when you look at a lot of the aspects of it, and they're just completely blind to just how evil they are. So these people think, well, hey, I go to church every day. I mean, I follow some of the commandments, and I believe in God because God's going to do something for me. And then you just completely miss the gospel. And those are the people who are sadly going to be led astray unless somebody wakes them up and tells them exactly the truth of the matter. And we hope somebody does that. Yep.
And that's our job. That's why we're here.
And that's I always go back to one of my favorite Bible verses is Ephesians 5:11, which says, "Have no fellowship with unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them." Or, if you wanted a simple explanation, have no alliance with darkness, rather expose them. Because part of our job isn't just spreading the gospel, but it's letting people know exactly where evil is, so that they don't fall into their traps. Because a lot of people who fall into the traps don't see it coming, and unless somebody's there to yell on them, be like, "Hey, look down," they're just going to fall down. They're never going to see it.
Yeah, I feel like you could do a whole second podcast just on the subject because of the number of celebrities who have actually come out and talked about the evil that's in Hollywood and the way that they dance around it. Dave Chappelle, for example. If you follow that, there's a whole rabbit hole with that. But yeah, this stuff is dark, and I feel like it's good to get learned up on just how dark it is, the way that people go crazy, the way that people get killed. But yeah.
Well, any final thoughts on this one before we wrap up our first episode here?
Nope, that was my
It was
final
some
thought.
good stuff, though. I'm really excited for the future and going and digging deeper in the next one.
Well, I have one little note here. We were talking about The Sound of Freedom, which came out. I saw it earlier this year. Very, very good movie. One of my top 5 movies of the year so far. But in the course of that, I'm not sure if you guys have been following, but the media has basically been trashing the film, saying that it's a QAnon conspiracy theory, that it's all a
Ugh.
bunch of right wingers and stuff like that. And literally 3 days after the film came out and did very, very well at the box office, Biden's DOJ has actually removed child sex trafficking from its areas of listing concerns on their website. So that was their response to a movie that's exposing child sex trafficking around the world. And they decided that the government was going to remove it from its website entirely because it's not a big enough concern to them. So now we've reached a point where, oh, you think that child sex trafficking and child sex rape is a bad thing? Oh, you must be one of those wacky conspiracy theorists because it's not a real thing. So it's like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, we could go down that rabbit hole for sure.
Oh yeah. They said, which one do you think is more evil, Hollywood or the government? Let me ask you this question, Duke Nukem. Is there any fundamental difference between Hollywood and the government at this point?
That's what I was about to say. I was like, they're both. At the end of the day, it's just the deep state and it's just the Hollywood elitists. They're all part of the same thing. They're all part of. They're sleeping in bed together. Yeah,
Hollywood seems to be just the propaganda arm of the government.
Yeah. And let's be honest, both the government and
Notice
Hollywood
how
are
Barack
probably.
Obama was hanging out with a lot of them. Just saying.
Yeah, I would say, put it this way: both Hollywood and the government are being secretly run by the intelligence agencies who are really running the show anyway. So they're both puppet arms. They're just no different puppet arms together, but they're pretty much one and the same. Sniffering cheers. Yeah, like I said, part of the reason why I was really excited to do this show because there's a lot of things going on in our world that needs to be talked about that isn't exactly talked about. And like I said, we got a group of people here who go to like I said, good solid churches and stuff like that. We know the word, but there's a lot of people out there who really don't know a lot of stuff that's going on. There needs to be more people to speak out about it. So this is exactly why we're doing this show, and exactly why next week, not next week, actually, let me rephrase that. There's not going to be a show next week because we're moving some of our shows around. So we won't be doing this show next week, but in 2 weeks, we'll be back here. And I think we're going to do a topic that, I don't know, might upset some people, but I think we should talk about the compromise of the church. Because there's a lot of issues that the church has compromised on over the last few years for a number of reasons. And I think we need to really talk about, whether modern churches are doing us a disservice or if they're also in on the much more sinister agenda going on here too. So, like I said, throughout the course of this show, the deeper into these topics that we get, we're probably going to make some people upset. But I mean, these things need to be said. And we're at a point now where, hey, look, we may be closer to the end than a lot of us realize. So I think these things need to be talked about now rather than later. So like I said, I think we'll have some fun here on the show for the next few weeks. So I want to go ahead and flip this over to you guys. I mean, normally when I come to the end of the show, I flip it over to my guests because I know they got things to promote. But I don't know, you guys aren't really content creators. But hey, maybe you got something that you want to tell people about that you want people to know, especially if they want to follow you, or you got something coming up you want to do. So I'll start with Sam. What do you got? Got anything that you want to tell people about?
Hello. I do have a TikTok. You can follow it. It's Sam Got a TikTok, spelled exactly like it sounds. God bless you.
Will do. Johnny, what you got coming?
I've been working on a Substack called God's Reveal. So yeah, just go to godsreveal.substack.com and you can find some more information on just how close we are to Jesus coming back. Thanks for having me on tonight.
All right. Cassie loved the show, apparently. Then, of course, Chris, we'll give you a chance to see what you got coming up, Chris.
Yeah, nothing too crazy, but I'm really excited to see where God takes us. And I think this is like a really great start for sure. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say.
All right, then I guess we'll pop this one back over to me. So letting you guys know, as far as Monday goes, I'm not expecting to have a show. I was kind of seeing if I can get a couple people together for a Mission Impossible, but I think we're going to wait. We might save the Mission Impossible talk for the Ballroom podcast on Tuesday night. So I think that's what we're going to do. So Monday night is not going to be a show. We're not going to be doing anything on that Monday. And then Tuesday, we're back here at Ballroom podcast. We're going to talk about more of the top 5 entertainment news of the week. And then next Friday, we're actually going to be doing the Friday night movie review club. We're going to bring Rob Motto back. We're bringing Rick Aragon back. We're going to be talking about Barbie and Oppenheimer, which are the 2 new releases, which will be next week. So we'll talk about those shows in full detail. And then I think this show will be back on the 24th, which is Monday. So we'll rearrange the time and confirm the time here once we're off the air. We'll talk about that here. But I think that's the day we're going to be talking about kind of the compromise of the church, so you can say. So we'll talk about that next week. So I love this first episode. I mean, I didn't know exactly what to expect because you guys hadn't really done a podcast in this format before, but you guys absolutely killed it. We got a lot of feedback here from our people in the chat tonight. So I'll give you guys a quick shout out before we head out of here. Josh Berger, who was here for us tonight, Duke Nukem, Big Ol' Met, who was here with us, Rocky the Black Dragon, Christian Freites, who was here with us tonight, Small Time Republic, Cult Classic Cage. Who else here? I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. Oh, Master of TDS, who was here with us, Yolanda Gates, joining us in the chat tonight. And make sure I got everybody on Rumble and on Kick. Yeah, but we're all good tonight. So, hey, thank you guys for joining us here. But before we head out of here, before we roll on out of here, I normally just play, the Spring Yard outro, and then we just go ahead and dip out. But since this is a Bible Lens podcast and it's more Christianity laden, I'm going to go ahead and play this little quick sermon here because, I don't know, maybe some of you guys listen to this podcast may think a little differently about, Christianity and kind of, the truth in Jesus Christ. And, well, in order to know that, you got to have to know the truth of the gospel. So here's Vodi Bakum telling you guys exactly what the gospel is, and we will see you guys in a couple of weeks. So wave to the crowd and adios, people.
When people say, no, our problem is this, our problem is that, we say, no, our problem is that God created the world, and God created man, and he put man in the garden to keep the garden, and he gave the man a command, and he held that man to perfect, perpetual obedience to that command, and he promised him life if he kept it, and death if he didn't, and he didn't keep it. He ate. And because he ate, because of that one man, sin entered the world and death through sin. And everyone born from that man through ordinary generation inherited that man's sin nature. And because of that sin nature, sins proceed from it. And our world is broken because of that sin. And we stand guilty before a holy and righteous God. And we know that he's holy, and we know that he's righteous, and we crave justice. But the problem is that if God gives us justice, we all die. And so that God, in his goodness and in his mercy, sent forth his son, who was not born of ordinary generation, but was born of a virgin. Yes, the virgin birth matters. Why? Because if he's born of ordinary generation, he's born in sin. But because he's not born of ordinary generation, he's not born in sin. He's clean of sin. His record is clean. And he keeps his record clean. And he obeys God's law. And because he's fully God and fully man, he obeys the law of God on our behalf in his active obedience. And then in his passive obedience, God made him who knew no sin to be sin for us. All we like sheep had gone astray. Each of us had turned to his own way, but God laid upon him the iniquity of us all. And Christ died for sin once for all, the just for the unjust. And God imputes our sinfulness to him. And he nails our sinfulness to the tree. And Christ dies and raises again on the third day for our justification. And there's another imputation. The righteousness of Christ is actually imputed to us so that God can be both just and the justifier of the one who places faith in Jesus Christ. So that all those who come to Christ may enter in. So that all those who place faith in Christ might be saved, but not only saved, but sanctified, because he's the firstborn of many brethren. We're justified and we're adopted into the family of God. And we're sanctified, and as his children, we begin to bear the family resemblance. And we're further sanctified throughout this life by the very same gospel that saves us. Until one day, when it's all said and done, we're not just saved from the penalty of sin. We're not just saved from the power of sin, but one day we're glorified and saved from the very presence of sin. That's the gospel that we preach. That's the gospel that we need. And that's the gospel that's more than enough.